Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be looking at this album. It is David Bowie's Lodger. So yeah, what I'm going to do in this video is give a bit of background information about the album. Then I will show you my vinyl copy of it here, and then go over each of the album songs in detail. So this was his 13th studio album, released on the 18th of May in 1979. Despite being considered the last of his Berlin trilogy of albums, this wasn't recorded there. It was recorded in Switzerland, at a place called Mountain Studios. However, like Low and Heroes, this does feature Brian Eno collaborating with Bowie on it, co-writing many of the album songs, and Tony Visconti is here on co-production duties. It was recorded during breaks from his 1978 stage tour, and using the same band from that tour. So yeah, I've got the little remastered CD here of the stage album what came out, and on this tour he showcased a lot of new material from Low and Heroes. However, the audience reaction to some of the songs, especially the more ambient instrumental pieces, wasn't the most enthusiastic. Apparently on original vinyl pressings of this, there is audible booing during the song Sense of Doubt. So maybe it was a result of the live reaction to this album, that in a way to keep his fans happy, that he went back on his next album to doing more traditional pop songs. There's no instrumental pieces on this album. So yeah, it's a little bit more accessible and that. So maybe it was a result of Bowie trying to please his fans. However, this does seem a little bit out of character. Kind of just my perception on it. Although Bowie he's always been someone who has always followed his own artistic vision and that. So when the album did come out in May of 1979, this was the longest gap between albums since his 1967 debut and the Space Oddity album. Every year after that, he'd been releasing an album. However, no new music came out during 1978. However, this album was considered a disappointment at the time. Rolling Stone magazine calling it a footnote to Heroes, and the Melody Maker calling it faceless. And it didn't chart all that high either, only reaching, well, say only, but it got to number 4 in the UK, and number 20 in the US. It was also around this time as well that Bowie and Eno's working relationship kind of grinded to a halt. Eno felt that they couldn't really get anywhere new after the Heroes album, and was dissatisfied with the final Lodger album what came out. However, in subsequent years, this album has been getting a bit of a reappraisal, and among Bowie fans this is considered one of his most underrated piece of works. So yeah, I'm now just going to show you my vinyl copy of it here, but first I have also got a little CD of it here. This came in a box set what covered the whole of the Berlin years, Low, Heroes, and the stage album, and then this one here. The brightness is terrible. Let's just try and turn it down a bit. That's a bit better there. There's the CD package in there. It comes with a little booklet here, which I'll just quickly show you now. So yeah, in here you get some various nice period photographs and that, bits from the music videos and that. That's from the DJ video clip, and Boys Keep Swinging and stuff. So yeah, all the lyrics and bits and pieces here. So yeah, that's a little CD booklet, and the vinyl copy of it here. I showed this in my most recent vinyl update. And I said that I was disappointed that I didn't get a original gatefold copy of this, which is a shame. I know. This is just a standard sort of non-gatefold copy. I think a reissue from the 80s. So the record label itself looks like that, just on the green RCA International label there. And then this also comes with a little lyric insert as well, just because sort of got this picture on the side, and then lyrics on the other side. So yeah, the album cover itself is very interesting. It's kind of sort of it's take your pick what way you hold it up. But it's supposed to depict Bowie as a victim of an accident, sort of with a broken nose and sort of bandages on his hands and that. Oh yeah, original copies of this with the gatefolds are probably better depicting this where it also folds out and that. But yeah, not one of his greatest album covers. So maybe this was one of the reasons why this this album got lower than expected record sales. So anyway, I'm now going to go over each of the album's songs. I will score each song out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album.
Learning to live with somebody's depression.
Okay, so the first song is called Fantastic Voyage, which I'm giving a 10 out of 10 to. Now, I love this song. Yeah, I think it's brilliant track. I mean, like, it's an interesting start, like, to the album, because it is, like, quite slow and, like, quite downbeat. Like, most times, like, albums start off, like, with a really, like, upbeat, like, rocking song. However, this one, like, is very slow, very sort of, like, downbeat and that, but it's got a great melody on it, and, like, a really, like, good chorus, like, as well to it. Sort of, like, introduces, like, the theme of like, world traveling, like, on, like, the first side, because that's something what, like, I don't think, like, often gets talked about, like, with this album, like, the first side, like, is, like, almost like a concept side. It's sort of, like, about, like, traveling, like, around the world and that, like, music, like, from different countries and that. And, like, the second side, like, is more, like, critiques and, like, comments on, like, Western culture. So yeah, that's just, like, the, like, interesting thing, like, with, like, this album here. But Fantastic Voyage is, like, a great, really interesting way to start the album, I think.
African nightmare, one-time moment for the hullabaloo and I slept to the nearest bar.
Next song is called African Night Flight, which I'm giving a 9 out of 10 to. This is a much more experimental song, probably the most weirdest, most sort of, like, out there song, like, on, like, this album. But, like, it's really fun though, and, like, really upbeat, unlike the more sort of, like, very serious, like, instrumental pieces on Low and Heroes. This was inspired by a trip to Kenya, what, like, Bowie made, like, with his son. So it has this kind of, like, world music vibe to it, what was like a couple of years, like, ahead of its time. Like, this was, like, way before, like, the likes of, like, Graceland and, like before, like, all, like, these other artists, like, started, like, embracing, like, world music and that. So this song, like, predated that, like, by, like, a good, like, couple of years. Like, it's got, like, all, like, these weird effects, like, on his voice as well. Reminds me, like, a little bit, like, of like, a 10cc song called I Wanna Rule the World, which has, like, all, like, these slightly, like, lower voices and high-pitched voices and that. Just really, for me, like, it just, like, raises, like, a smile, this song. Like, it's just so fun, so upbeat. It is a fantastic song, I think.
Somewhere someone's calling me, and when the chips are down.
So now the next song is a track called Move On, which I'm giving a 8 out of 10 to. Now this is another really good song. Like, again, like, it's got, like, this theme, like, of traveling. Like, the first line is, like, sometime, like, I feel the need to move on to, like, explore the world and, like, whatnot on that. But, like, then, like, it could also, like, relate to sort of, like, Bowie, like, himself, like, the changes, like, he would, like, go through, like, throughout his career, like, the different stages of that of it. Like, again, like, it's quite a fun song, quite rhythmic, quite upbeat. Like, the chorus of the song, like, is actually based on, like, a backwards tape of, like, the song, like, All the Young Dudes for, like, Bowie wrote for, like, Mock the Hoople. So, yeah, like, really good song, like, very unique again, very interesting sound on the track Move On, which will get a 8 out of 10. The next song is called Yassassin. I think that's how, like, you say it. Like, it's like the little, like, subtitle for this one is Turkish for Long Live. But for me, this is the weakest track, like, on the album. Like, it's kind of got, like, this sort of, like, ska sort of vibe to it. Sort of, like, very fashionable, like, scene, like, at, like, the time with bands like The Specials and, like, Madness and that. For me, though, it is just a bit of, like, an average song. Yeah, like, for me, like, the lyrics maybe not the best, like, on the song. But, like, it isn't bad, like, by any means, just not very special, though. So, yeah, Yassassin gets a 7 out of 10 for me. Now, the final song on side 1 is called Red Sails, which I, again, really love this song, giving it a 9 out of 10. This is a more sort of rocking, upbeat song, which really picks up the album, like, after Yassassin. Like, again, like, this, like, was, like, inspired, like, by, like, the new wave, sort of, like, German bands such as Neu. Like, it kind of feels that this one, like, goes on a bit too long, because it starts off, like, really well. Like, the first couple of verses, like, are brilliant, but then, like, it does, like, drag a little bit, but the actual start of the song, like, is brilliant. Like, it would be, like, a 10 out of 10 for, like, the first 2 minutes, and, like, the last 4, like, is, like, kind of what, like, sort of, like, drags it on a bit. Like, the last 2, I mean, like, is, like, what, like, drags it on, like, a little bit for me. But, yeah, really great song with Red Sails. Again, fantastic sound, like, the guitar playing, like, on this one, like, is brilliant.
I am a DJ, I am what I play.
So now we are flipping over to side 2, and like this is like where like we get like Bowie's sort of like observations and that like on like modern like Western culture like off off the time. The first song like is like a prime example of that. DJ. This is him sort of like this is him like talking about like the culture of like radio disc jockeys and that. Like despite it being like a really catchy like sort of like upbeat song like with like a really like interesting fun music video, it didn't do all that great like when it was like released like as a single. Only reached number 29 in the UK, but I think it's got a really unique guitar sound on it, like a good like toe tapping song, and that, yeah, a really fantastic track there, DJ. So now we get what probably for me the highlight of the album, and one of like my all-time favourite David Bowie songs, Look Back in Anger, which I think is absolutely amazing. It's got such an urgency like to the performance, like especially like the drumming like by like a guy called Dennis Davis, absolutely fantastic drumming, just like draws you right into the song. Bowie's vocal like is like superb, and the middle like guitar solo played by I think Carlos Alomar, again that just makes a song for me. Fantastic track. And this was the American single from the album. Like Boys Too Swinging like was considered like a bit too like risque for like the American charts, so like they put this one out instead, and like would you believe it, it failed to chart. I think this is just a brilliant song. Yes, it's not very commercial, but it is one hell of a song. It's just a perfect track for me.
Boys keep swinging, boys always work it out.
And then we get probably the most popular track like on the album, Boys Keep Swinging, which I'm giving again the full 10 out of 10 to. Kind of starts off like very similar like to Heroes, like in some ways, very similar sort of like guitar sound like on this one, but like it is a very different like type of song. Like I mean, like it's a very catchy song, like again sort of like about like the joys of like being male, I guess really, like with this song. Like Bowie said that like he was like influenced by like the recent song like YMCA like by the Village People, and that like on like this song here. Interesting thing with like the actual music like on this track was like the band like they all swapped instruments like on the song, so like we get the bassist playing drums, the drummer doing bass, guitarist playing keyboards, like all like whatever, and like it gives it like this really sort of like slightly messy quality, but it really works, slightly garagey sound, and think it is a really interesting song. Like also like a welcome return to like the UK singles charts for Bowie, like the first time like he would be like in like the UK top 10 since Sound of Vision, I think 2 years before this. Like this reached number 7 like there. But yeah, it isn't one of like his most popular songs like of like all time, like compared to like classics like Space Oddity and Starman and that. But still a brilliant track though. Like again, like another personal favourite, Boys Keep Swinging.
Johnny is a man, and he's bigger than you.
So now we get a song called Repetition, which I'm giving a 8 out of 10 to. Now this is a really interesting song. Like I mean, like lyrically, like it's like a sort of like a story like about like a like abusive partner and that, with themes of like domestic violence and that. A really like bold like sort of like subject matter like to write about, but like Bowie sings this with like very little like emotion, like purposely though, and kind of like in like a way like to highlight like the actual story like and like the message like of like the song. Like Bowie's just like a narrator with this song. Like I mean, like it really works quite well, I think, like very like unique lyrically, but musically maybe a little bit lackluster though. But yeah, still a pretty damn good song there, Repetition. What would get a 8 out of 10 for me.
Can you hear it at all?
So now the final song on the album is a track called Red Money, which I would give a 7 out of 10 to. Now this is actually a reworked version of a song what originally appeared on like Iggy Pop's album The Idiot. This was one of like the albums what like they made together, like just like when like Bowie like moved like to Berlin, and like the like original song like on like that album like was called Sister Midnight. And like this version like starts off like with this really sort of funky bass line. We've got like all like these interesting sort of vocal styles and like sounds in it. Lyrically, not too sure like what like, it could be like about, but like it is like a pretty good song, but like not a highlight for me. Does go on a little bit, this song, sort of like about 4 or 5 minutes, this track. Does get a little bit like tedious, but it's still not a bad track though, and Red Money would get a 7 out of 10 for me. So yeah, overall this album scores a total of 88%, which is a terrific score. For me, this is probably my favourite like off like his Berlin era albums, and like probably like my favourite like off like his whole career like thus far. And like considering that like I've got like albums like Hunky Dory and like Ziggy Stardust, that's really saying something. Like, I think that the main reason like why like I prefer this one like over like Hunky Dory, like especially like is because like it's like Hunky Dory's got a couple of like slightly filler songs, like all like the second side like Andy Warhol and like Fill Your Heart and that. Plus like I prefer like the slightly like different like production like on like this album. I think most of like the songs like are like very melodic on this album, and they've got like great lyrics like for like the most part. And like also like it is like a experimental album, very textured. Like you'll always hear something new with this album, like whenever like you play it. And like for me, like it's sort of like he took like what he learned from making Low and Heroes, like what works on those albums, what didn't as much, and like sort of like amalgamated it like into like the one album, which is Lodger. Now, one main criticism of this album, like what like it does like often like come in for, like is like the mix on it. And like yeah, maybe it isn't like the greatest mix, but for me like it gives it this kind of DIY, slightly messy quality, which I like. Like it's not a very polished album, which I think like is like a good thing. Like music like can sometimes get a little bit too like overproduced, a little bit too like sterile. And like the other reason why like this album like often like does get like looked down upon like is because it is always like bungled together with Low and Heroes, which are very adventurous, very out there albums like for Bowie, and that like with all like the ambient like instrumental stuff on them and that. And like this one like is like sometimes seen like as like a step backwards, but for me I think it is like one of like his like transitional records where like, he's coming out like off like his Berlin era, just sort of like entering like the 80s and that, like the follow-up like Scary Monsters, like it is like a very sort of similar sounding, very similar like vibe like to this album. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this review / like defense of Lodger. Like I would like to know what you think of this album like down below, like in like the comments. Like I'm sure there's some people like who like love it just like me, like other maybe people like not as much, but yeah, like it would be interesting to know what you all think, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.